Hey everyone, and welcome back. Are you ready to dive in? This time we're exploring someone who I think you'll find quite fascinating. The Spanish writer Antonio Gala.
A fantastic choice. His life and work offer a really unique window into the world of the Enneagram, especially Type 4.
Right. Speaking of type 4, for anyone who's new to this, we're talking about the individualists of the Enneagram.
Often known for their emotional depth, their creativity, they really do experience things on a different level, and that comes through so clearly when you look at Gala's life.
Absolutely. And one thing that really struck me while reading about him was this quote. And I'm going to do my best with Spanish here, but he said, "He sido vulnerable. He sentido como muy hondas heridas que para otros hubieran pasado inadvertidas."
Wow.
Powerful, right?
Yeah.
It's like he's saying he felt wounds so deeply, wounds that others might not even register.
It's the intensity, isn't it? Like you were saying, Type 4s, they just experience things on a whole other level. And it's not just that they feel things more strongly, it's like their whole emotional world is wired differently.
It's like they have access to this whole spectrum of emotional colors that most people don't even know exist.
Exactly. And that's often what fuels their creativity. Think about Gala's writing, the raw emotion, the poetry of it all. It's like he's pulling you right into his soul.
You can practically feel it in every word.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, though, is that part of why type 4s are sometimes seen as being, well, a little misunderstood?
You're right. It must be tough when you experience the world with that kind of intensity, that constant search for meaning, and the people around you just don't quite get it.
It's like they're speaking a different language sometimes.
It's that dance between wanting to connect but also feeling fundamentally different. And that tension, that's a big part of the Type 4 experience.
Which leads us right to Gala himself.
Hmm.
Because when you look at his life, that independent streak, that need to forge his own path, it's so clearly a type 4 trait.
He really resisted being put in a box, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough for him to just be a writer. He had to create his own unique space, let his voice be heard, even if it meant going against the grain.
Authenticity, it's like their holy grail. And for Gala, that meant expressing himself in a way that was true to him no matter what.
And he definitely didn't shy away from the big stuff either. Social justice, the meaning of life, these are topics that a lot of people avoid, but they were central to his work.
Right, and that's where we start to see the influence of the social subtype. Remember, there are variations within each Enneagram type, and the social subtype of Type 4, they're not content to just explore their own internal world. They feel deeply connected to the suffering of others.
It's like their own sensitivity makes them more attuned to the pain of the world around them.
Exactly. They see injustice and they feel compelled to do something about it. So for Gala, his activism, his concern for the marginalized, it all stems from that deep well of Type 4 intensity.
It's like his own sensitivity became a way to connect with the pain of others. He saw the world through that type 4 lens, and it fueled this incredible desire to make a difference. And there's this one quote that really captures this. He said, and again, bear with my Spanish, but "La gente siente por mí una extraña predilección porque percibe en mí la invalidez, la soledad, y entonces me quiere de una manera especial, de una manera protectora."
It's beautiful.
Isn't it? It's like he's saying people are drawn to his vulnerability, to that openness, and it creates this really special bond.
It's funny, isn't it? Type 4s, they can feel like outsiders, set apart by how intensely they feel things, but that same vulnerability can be incredibly magnetic. It draws people in.
It's that authenticity, that willingness to be real that resonates so deeply when you say.
Absolutely. And that's not to say it's easy being a Type 4. I mean, imagine carrying that much intensity within you all the time. It can be exhausting.
Definitely not for the faint of heart.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
But with all that intensity comes an incredible capacity for depth, for creativity, for forging connections that are truly profound. And that's something worth celebrating.
I think that's a great place to pause for now. When we come back, we'll delve a little deeper into Antonio Gala's life and work and explore how some of these other Type 4 traits manifested for him. Stay tuned. It's like he understood that paradox, you know. Type 4s, they can feel like outsiders, but that same vulnerability can draw people in and create these really powerful connections.
Exactly. It's that willingness to be open, to let people see their heart, even the parts that are maybe a little bruised.
It's funny because you mentioned that Type 4s can be misunderstood, and I've definitely heard people call them snobby or pretentious before. But I'm starting to think that's not quite it.
It's a common misconception, and I think it comes from this place of, like you were saying, not quite understanding motivation behind their actions.
Because it's not about being better than anyone else.
Right. It's not about status or material things. It's about this deep-seated need for authenticity, for experiences that resonate with their soul.
And that can manifest in all sorts of ways, like being drawn to a particular aesthetic, surrounding yourself with beauty.
Hmm.
And when it comes to Gala, I mean, his writing is known for its lyricism, its elegance. It's not just the words he chooses, it's the way he puts them together, the imagery he evokes.
Exactly. And that's not accidental. Type 4s, they're curators in a way. They're creating an experience, both for themselves and for others, that reflects their inner world.
And that makes me think about how often we, in our everyday lives, try to do the opposite.
Yeah.
We try to fit in, to tone down the things that make us different.
It's that fear of judgment, right? That fear of standing out.
Exactly. But maybe there's a lesson here. For all of us, regardless of our Enneagram type, what if, like Gala, we embraced those things that make us unique?
Now, that's a powerful thought. What if those very qualities we try to hide are actually the keys to unlocking our full potential?
It makes you think about all the artists, the writers, the musicians throughout history who dared to be different, who challenged the status quo.
And look at the impact they had.
Because when you really think about it, it's often those people, the ones who embrace their individuality, who end up changing the world.
Absolutely. They're not afraid to push boundaries to challenge our perceptions. They show us new ways of seeing, new ways of being.
And that brings us back to the Enneagram itself, doesn't it? Because it's not about putting people in boxes. It's about recognizing these patterns, these different ways of moving through the world.
Exactly. And when we understand those patterns, when we understand the why behind our own actions and the actions of others, it opens up a whole new level of compassion, both for ourselves and for the people around us,
It's about recognizing the beauty in our differences.
and appreciating the richness that those differences bring to our lives.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Like, are there other figures throughout history, artists, writers, musicians, who might have shared that same Enneagram type as Antonio Gala? People who had that same intensity, that same drive to dig a little deeper and find meaning.
It's fascinating to consider, right? When you think about some of the most iconic figures in history, the ones who really poured their hearts into their work, the ones who dared to be different, you do start to see some of those Enneagram patterns emerge.
It's like the Enneagram gives you this whole new lens to view the world through, doesn't it?
Hmm.
You start to notice these patterns in people's behavior, their motivations, maybe even your own. And it's not about putting anyone in a box or anything, but it's about understanding those different ways of seeing the world, those different ways of being.
Exactly. The Enneagram isn't about limitations, it's about liberation. It's about understanding the why behind our actions, our desires, our fears. It helps us make sense of ourselves and appreciate the incredible diversity of human nature.
It's about recognizing that our differences are what make us so interesting. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of Antonio Gala and the intricacies of the Type 4 personality, it makes you wonder, what if he hadn't embraced those qualities that made him so unique? The intensity, the depth of feeling, the artistic drive. Would he have achieved the same level of success? Would his work have had the same emotional impact?
It's a question worth pondering, isn't it? And it speaks to something that's relevant for all of us, regardless of our Enneagram type. What if those very things that we perceive as flaws or weaknesses are actually the keys to unlocking our full potential?
What a powerful thought to leave us with. To all of you listening, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, keep embracing what makes you you. Until next time.